Good morning and welcome to the regular Board of County Commissioners meeting of Tuesday, May 14, 2013. We'll have an invocation by Stan Bowling, our Planning Director, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you. Please rise.
Let's pray. Lord God, we praise you this morning for who you are. We thank you for what you've done and what you are doing. We remember from your word a promise that because of your tender mercy, you will make the sun rise and shine on those living in darkness and in the shadow of death to guide our feet to peace. We thank you that that's been fulfilled and is being fulfilled with your appearance. We remember also your words to come to you. Everyone who's weary and burdened, to take your yoke, learn from you, and find rest and find peace. And we thank you for that promise. This morning, we give you every burden that we have. Burden of body, of mind, of heart, of spirit, things that we think we possess. We give all these things to you. And we ask for your help in taking up the yoke you have prepared for us and to learn from you. We ask that you'd help us do that today. We give you this meeting and ask that the decisions that are made and that come from what happens this morning would please you and would accomplish your good work. We ask this in your name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Stan. Please join with me in the Pledge of Allegiance to the greatest nation on earth. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you once again. Good morning, gentlemen. Any additions, deletions to the agenda? Emergency items?
Move to approve as presented.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner O'Brien, seconded by Vice Chairman. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Next item on the agenda is proclamations and presentations. The first will be a presentation of proclamation recognizing May 12th through May 18th as National Police Week. Sheriff? Chiefs? This is the safest chambers in the state today, and I thank you for your presence. Chief Morris, Chief Stabe, Chief Melanson, Chief Curry, Captain. Good morning. Yesterday we had the occasion, as I stated at the courtroom steps, that it was a day that none of us would miss, but many of us wish it did not have to occur. The appreciation for law enforcement is daily. The appreciation for safety is daily. But to have a special day to recognize the losses, the inherent risks that law enforcement take to provide the safety and security for our citizens is a very special day. And although it was largely attended by law enforcement, a presence was there in uniform, I believe the citizens also were there in spirit as they were doing what you want them to do every day, and that was living their daily lives without the risks and inherent danger that you and your personnel protect, serve, and provide for the citizens of Indian River County. And we greatly appreciate that. We know the inherent risks that you take to do that service for all of us. The proclamation reads as recognizing May 12th through May 18th, 2013 as National Police Week. Whereas there are approximately 900,000 law enforcement officers serving in communities across the United States, including the dedicated members of the Indian River County Sheriff's Office and Indian River County Municipal Police Departments. Whereas nearly 60,000 assaults against law enforcement officers are reported each year, resulting in approximately 16,000 injuries. And whereas since the first recorded death in 1791, almost 20,000 law enforcement officers in the United States have been made to have the ultimate sacrifice and been killed in the line of duty. whereas the names of these dedicated public servants are engraved on the walls of the National Law Enforcement Officers Memorial in Washington, D.C., and whereas the new names of fallen heroes are being added to the National Law Enforcement Officers Memorial this spring, including 119 officers killed in 2012 and 201 officers killed in previous years. And whereas the service and sacrifice of all officers killed in line of duty will be honored during the National Law Enforcement Officers Memorial Fund's 25th Annual Candlelight Vigil on the evening of May 13, 2013. And whereas the Candlelight Vigil is part of National Police Week, which takes place this year on May 12th through the 18th. And whereas May 15th is designated as Peace Officers Memorial Day in honor of the fallen heroes and their families, and the U.S. flags shall be flown at half-staff. Now therefore be it proclaimed by the Board of County Commissioners of Indian River County, Florida, that May 12th through the 18th, 2013 is recognized as National Police Week in honor of the service of law enforcement officers in our community and communities across the nation, duly adopted the 14th day of May 2013, signed by all 5 county commissioners. Sheriff and chiefs, if you'd like to say some words to us, we would appreciate it.
Commissioner, good morning. Thank you for the proclamation. We certainly do respect that. Chairman Flesher, thank you for attending yesterday. You know, not only is it Police Memorial Week, but it's also Police Officer Recognition Week. And I tell you that the body that we have in this particular county, whether it be a meth lab, whether it be a pill mill, whether it be a street crime task force, whether it be a missing child or a missing Alzheimer patient, we have one heck of a team here, and I'm proud to work with them. So thank you for your dedication to law enforcement in this county, and as well as the proclamation. Thank you.
Chiefs?
I'll just say on the City of Sebastian, thank you for your support.
Likewise, the town of Indian River Shores, thank you very much.
The City of Fellsmere appreciates it very much.
And Chief Curry.
Good morning, Commissioners. David Curry, Vero Beach Police Chief. I want to thank you, and it's good to see everyone this morning. As a city, we had our proclamation read last week, but it's certainly nice to be here, as Sheriff mentioned, in a collective way, as agency heads, receiving this proclamation from you together. So thank you very much.
Well, thank you for being here in a collective way, and your mutual approach to law enforcement and your continued cooperation amongst agencies is well recognized and well appreciated, and we appreciate the blanket of security that you all provide. Thank you. Thank you. Yes, you get another one. Thank you, Chief.
Take care, Chief. Multiple.
Thank you. Chief, twice again.
Chief, take care. All right, good seeing you.
Thank you.
Hey, Michelle, take care.
And Sheriff.
Chief, Manager.
Thank you, Sheriff.
Hold on, Brandon.
Yeah, how many titles you got now? Looking good on TV last night, Sheriff.
Next item on the agenda is a presentation by Barbara Hoffman, Chairman of the Cultural Council of Indian River County, Kevin Lowry, Visitor Services Manager, United States Fish and Wildlife Refuge, and Samuel Koltinsky, Executive Producer and owner of Marvo Entertainment. And they would like to talk about a new documentary that's being produced, which is America's Gatekeeper, the story of Paul Krogel. Good morning, Barbara.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, Commission members, staff, and guests. I'm very pleased to be here today to inform you of a documentary that is being filmed on Pelican Island. And it's called America's Gatekeeper, the story of Paul Krogel. And what is exciting about this is that next year is going to be the 150th birthday of Paul Krogel. And this film will be coming out in honor of his birthday, and there are many, many celebrations that will be taking place on Pelican Island at that time, and this will all be a part of it. So I'm proud to say that the Cultural Council is partnering with Marvel Entertainment and the United States Wildlife Service to put together this film, and I'd like to have you hear from both Kevin Lowry, the Visitor Services Manager now for Pelican Island for the U.S. Fish and Wildlife, and then he will introduce Samuel Kosinski, who is the producer of the film.
Thank you, Barbara.
Good morning. The United States Fish and Wildlife Service is a federal agency under the Department of Interior that manages the entire National Wildlife Refuge system. And in 1903, the first ever National Wildlife Refuge was established in this country, and that is Pelican Island National Wildlife Refuge, located in Sebastian, Florida. Today, we have 561 National Wildlife Refuges, all because of one brave gentleman who was a German immigrant named Paul Kregel, who came and settled in Sebastian. And when there were no rules and regulations about harming wildlife, this gentleman risked his life before he was even the first ever refuge manager because he wanted to do the right thing, and that was to protect the habitat, protect the wildlife that we're calling it home. So today we have this honor to continue his legacy. He was the first ever volunteer, he was the first ever game warden, and he was the first ever refuge manager. And because of his bravery, I get to wear this uniform with a lot of pride every day. So I have this film that we can start, and it's a 2 to 3 minute promo.
I would like to tell you about Paul Kregel, the first game warden for the Pelican Island Federal Bird Sanctuary. Now, of course, when I declared on March 14th, 1903, this as our first bird sanctuary, there were no appropriations. There was no United States Fish and Wildlife Service from which we might deploy a federal staff member. So the Florida Audubon Society hired Paul Kregel to do the work for which he had already been volunteering, protecting that last rookery of the brown pelican on Pelican Island. And if a man thought that he might do damage to the bird life around the area of Pelican Island, well, he had to deal with Paul Kregel and his determination to protect those birds and that wildlife.
He actually was America's gatekeeper for this beautiful islands and for the birds and for environment and the habitat across the country.
It's such an inspirational story when you think about how one person truly can make a difference. For one man to stand up and be so brave to do something knowing it was the right thing to do and not making any money out of it by any means, just standing up and volunteering his precious time to protect wildlife is just an inspirational story that so many of us can learn about and continue on with his legacy. Germany should be very proud of their son and his efforts here in America.
I think that it is wonderful that so many people are interested in Pelican Island today, because otherwise we may not have had any pelicans if it had not been for Warden Paul Kregel.
Our community learned from the work that Paul Kregel did to show how a community can live together with the environment and with development in a very positive way. To our international visitors, and we have many who come to our area, it's a beautiful area, and they learn what we have done and the messages that we send that they can take back to their own homes, their own countries, and their own communities. When we talk about nature and we talk about the environment, I think young people are more sensitive to these issues, and they love the outdoors and they love the environment. And when they learn that one person so many years ago was able to make such a significant change, he can certainly become a role model for them.
We see things naturally here every day that most people will never see in their lifetimes. This is actually my first year coming to the festival, and I actually want to come back next year and actually be a part of it, because it's amazing to see how many people actually drive here. A lady who's volunteering with me right now drove all the way from Wisconsin, and that's pretty amazing to see all these people come here just for the wildlife thing.
People need to hear the story about Paul Craigle and his efforts more now than ever. This is our 110th anniversary, and not just locals, but individuals that are traveling here from all over the world are getting an opportunity to experience a true conservation hero.
I wanted to bring out awareness for Pelican Island's National Wildlife Refuge then, because it's celebrating 110th birthday, and then of course then the whole wildlife refuge system. And I thought it would be a great way then to spread the word with doing something unusual pretty much. One person went out there then and got other people interested in Pelican Islands, and pretty much with one person riding down now the East Coast, I wanted to show the same thing, that one person still today can make a difference.
Standing here today at the Paul Craigle Homestead is where Paul Craigle used to look out at Pelican Island National Wildlife Refuge. And that was a 5-acre island at that time. Today, it's 2.8 acres due to human encroachment and wave action from boats and jet skis. We want to protect the island today just as much as Paul Craigle wanted to protect it back in the late 1800s and early 1900s. And if we could have more individuals like Paul Craigle on this planet, the world would be a better place.
Good morning. Morning. Thank you so much for the opportunity to allow me to share with you a part of my dream. I'm very fortunate as a producer to be able to tell stories. And this is a great American story. And this is a story that needs to be told not only for this country, but also internationally. Little did I know 20 years ago when I crossed the eastern border of Germany after the fall of the wall, would I ever be telling a story about a German immigrant from Chemnitz that fell in love with your area so much that he wanted to settle here and change the landscape of America. It's truly a wonderful project, and we're excited. I've put together a wonderful national team that will be developing this project with us over the next year. I'm extremely excited that the host for the project will be the great-great-grandson of Paul Craigle. I have found it's very important to have young people involved in these types of projects so that as we turn over the torch of conservation, stewardship, appreciation for the arts and history, that we bring young people into these projects. Distribution will be for PBS along with web distribution. There'll be a local release of the project. Then come the international film festivals, screenings around the country, curriculum built around the project to get it into schools. In short, it's a multimedia project that, again, I feel very honored to work with these fine people. Yes, you're young too. Fine people to help spearhead this project. We're turning up some wonderful archival material along the way. Janice Tominski, the granddaughter, I was fortunate to be able to receive some very special documents that date back to 1863. And these are in German, and we'll be able to look at that progression from Germany to this area by Paul Kregel. And so we've even uncovered a log where he is traveling around this area in his boat called the Autobahn. So I promise you it's going to be an exciting project to leave a legacy here, as well to reinforce the wonderful work that you're doing. One of the first things I said when I came here or asked was, how in the world are you all doing this? There's a beautiful mixture here of conservation, stewardship, and economic development. And this is seldom seen across our country today. I travel all over the place. And everyone that I spoke to said, leadership, leadership, leadership. I applaud your efforts. And it's nice to be able to bring a camera team here and be able to shoot and film and not have to worry about the angles at which you're shooting. It's absolutely marvelous. We're working in concert with the Viva Florida 500. This year's Florida's 500th birthday, and I'd like to leave this poster that was done by the branding artist Chris Steele. He's one of our partners, and he signed it as well, so hang on to it. I'd like to leave this with you. And also, I recently released a film on being darling. This is the first in our series called Heroes of Conservation, and this is making its way around the country right now. In fact, I'm screening it in Washington next week, at which time we'll also be making the announcement about this project. If I might approach you, I would love to leave a copy for each of you.
Sure. Good job. Great job.
Thank you. Thank you for your kind words, too. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. It's got to be a good guy who's chewing on a star.
And thank you again for allowing us to take time to share this project with you today.
Mr. Kotinski, thank you so much for documenting a great effort in our history here in Indian River County. And if there's anything we can do for the project, please don't hesitate, as we truly appreciate your efforts. Thank you.
Very cool.
Next item on the agenda is informational items, which we generally do not have to go further on. They're there for general information. But I was speaking with Vincent Burke, and I wanted to have an update as to the amnesty program, which was incepted on, I believe, April 2nd, and closes out on August 31st. So, Vincent, how did we do after the first month?
The process has started. For the record, Vincent Burke, Utility Services Director. As you had stated, on April 2nd, we opened up the 5-month amnesty program. So far, we've had a few payoffs, about $5,000 worth of payoffs. This is for reserve accounts that do not have consumption. So we have 4 months to go. We've put the notice out into the newspaper and on our website. If you go to the utilities website, you can find some additional information about the program and some contact information, who to call in our office, but staff has done a great job in coordinating some of the questions and answers. And we've had, I think, 11 or 12 different folks calling in to find out more about the program. And as the time progresses, there's different payoff dates. So staff is working with those interested parties to make sure that they have the available information. So we just wanted to bring this in front of the board to say, it's been 1 month. We've had some inquiries. We've had some payments to date, and we're going to continue to work with those folks outside to make sure that we can, answer their questions. And we have about 4 more months to go.
And we have the overall likelihood of waiving slightly over $200,000, and with a possibility of bringing in over $600,000.
Yes, sir. Yes. Yeah. So we're working to try to make sure that we can answer the questions if possible sooner rather than later. They can take advantage of this.
Thank you, Vincent. Commissioner Davis.
Yes, I'm just kind of wondering, in looking at how this may play out, I'm hoping that that's enough time. And I understand we've got to draw the line somewhere, but I visualize this more as drawing a line somewhere for those that are gaming the system versus those that are in a system that is not functioning correctly. And I'm not talking about our utilities department. I'm talking about more of the limbo somewhere between ready to either tap into our utility system or where the prior owner invested early. And I don't know. I don't know whether I don't want to make policy based on extreme times, which I think that's really where we are. But I guess perhaps if there's a way of us baking some common sense into it, that you as the utility director or the county administrator sees where somebody's not truly gaming the system but needs help to make this property marketable due to the cloud on the title of obsessive utility fees that are based on penalties and interest of somebody else's doing. So I don't know. I don't have the answer for it today, but it may be something that we need to look at in the event that it's still just a little bit premature for the $600,000 worth of delinquent bills versus $5,000.
Well, that's why I wanted to bring it up just about at the month line to see if we can get a baseline established to look at what we've done in April and see if there is any corrections to be needed in the future. But point well taken, Commissioner Davis.
You could give us authority for a certain, we could look at that percentage, but I'd like, if I did do it, have to come back to you and show you what I've done, so there's no, because sometimes there's, I want you to be fully aware, and if we did that, if it was of Vinny or myself, that I'd like to, I think that if I do have to make adjustments, I want you to be aware as a commission what I've done and have to come back and show you.
And maybe if we could do it based on something over a certain threshold. I mean, if you have somebody coming in that just may have 8 ERUs, that I don't know if that would be considered significant enough for us to come back and either approve it or informational. I don't know how to do it, but you understand what I'm saying?
Well, if you give a value, I think it's either we'll talk about a dollar value more than a percentage. I can only authorize up to so much.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you, Vincent. Next item on the agenda is consent agenda. Gentlemen?
Move to approve. Oh, wait, I need to pull one thing. I need to pull the surplus, which is...
D or E?
E.
Item E, Echo?
Yes.
Move to approve as amended.
Second. We have a motion to approve as amended by Commissioner O'Brien, seconded by myself. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Vice Chairman Davis, item E, Echo.
Yes, I need to abstain from that for the vote.
As you may be involved?
No, I won't, but my principal broker and auctioneer may be.
Outstanding. It should be.
Absolutely.
Move to approve E.
Second. That's a motion by Commissioner O'Brien, seconded by Commissioner Solari. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries 4-0 with Commissioner Davis abstaining and filing the appropriate paperwork. Next item on the agenda, we're moving right along, gentlemen, is a work order number 3 by Mastella and Mola Incorporated, Central Regional Wastewater Plant Sludge Holding Tank Modifications, memorandum dated May 1st, 2013, found on pages 74 through 81. Good morning, Mr. Burke.
Good morning, sir. This is, without going into a lot of history here, we used to process all of the biosolids material up at the Gifford plant. Prior to my arrival, there were some odor control issues up at High Ridge Mobile Home Park, and Mr. Olson, the former director, had made a commitment to try to rectify that situation. So that's when the biosolids facility was built down at the landfill area, and all the operations since that time has moved to that area. But we've been kind of working with a temporary fix at this point for the last several years. So this work order is to engage the services of Mastella and Moeller to design and to use a structural engineer and use an electrical engineer to take a look at the sledge holding facility to make modifications, improvements, and specifications both on the electrical side and on the piping side and on the pumping side, and also to help decommission some of the old where they used to have some belt presses up in that area which had caused the odor control. So I believe the backup here talks about a $58,135.50 engineering services that includes some construction oversight, electrical specifications, some structural engineering work to take a look at the structural integrity of, I think there's two 100,000 gallon tanks up in that area. So if there's any questions from the board, I'll be happy to answer them.
I move to approve.
Second.
And also, Mr. Chairman, if you could, just, when we're making an investment like this, I think it bodes well for us to keep the community in the know in it. Yes, and let them know, because clearly, a lot of this started from their concerns. And we've been very proactive in dealing with this, and so I think that keep them in the loop and let them know what we're doing.
From the date that this is approved, we have 90 days to do our due diligence, to get the documents together, and then we'd have to go through a bidding process to make sure that we can work on that. So we have some time to talk to the residents in that area just south of that plant, but we'll let them know that this is coming.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I do want to actually thank the utility department, note that they've been very responsible in the way they've handled these things. First the odors in Gifford, but also the odors at the West wastewater plant. I mean, that was a case where our plant went there before almost anybody was around there, and then people came and objected somewhat to different orders, and the utilities has been very aggressive and positive in addressing those situations. So I just think the public ought to note that they've been working very hard to make sure that the impact of their work is as minimal as possible. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Vincent.
Okay, thank you.
On motion by Commissioner Davis, seconded by Commissioner O'Brien. Any further discussion, gentlemen? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Next item on the agenda under commission items is Commissioner Peter O'Brien wishing to discuss the consideration of a community redevelopment area memorandum dated May 6th, 2013.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As the board is aware, there's been a lot of discussion and concern with the Gifford community. And last month, I believe it was last month, Commissioner Davis brought forward and we directed staff to take a look at updating the community plan for the Gifford community. And it kind of occurred to me that somewhere in that plan there'll probably be some items that need to be funded. And so what I would is ask the board to direct staff to do a little further research into a redevelopment area for the Gifford community. As you all are aware, but just to summarize real quickly, with a community redevelopment area, the taxable value of that area is set as a baseline, and then any subsequent increase in that tax base, the resulting incremental tax increase, instead of going into the county's general fund, would then go back into the community redevelopment fund, which could be used to do improvements to the community. And I think this would be good to look at doing now for a couple reasons. One is, since we are looking at updating the community plan, this would create a recurring revenue stream that would then be able to fund those community improvements that the plan will highlight and dictate. Secondly, since it would be tax dollars from the Gifford community and the businesses in the community going back into improvements of the community, it would create a sense of ownership, which I think would be good. It would give the community some local pride, and knowing that it was their dollars that created those improvements gives them that sense of ownership, and I think that's a benefit. And then finally, since it's a CRA under the county, I know the administrator has concerns with some of the other municipal CRAs where they get 95% of that incremental tax increase, even though the county still has to provide services to those areas. Since we own, or we will be the owners of the CRA, we may be able to start at the 95% level, but over time that could be scaled back with a long-term goal of maybe reaching a 50-50 type appropriation. And I think that might make the administrator a little happier about going forward with this as well. But it gives us that flexibility. And I guess there's a couple ways I'd like to ask staff to look at doing this. One is just to create the CRA strictly over the Gifford community. The other way would be, I believe Martin County did theirs where they basically overlaid the CRA over the entire county, and then they created sub-areas for their different areas for the benefit area. If we follow that path and make the CRA the entire county, at some point then looking down the road, Gifford would obviously be a subcommittee or a sub-area of the CRA, but maybe down the road, the West Wabasso area, the Oslo area, these could also be incorporated as redevelopment areas. So at this point, I'm just asking the board and to direct staff to look into the technical aspects of creating a community redevelopment area with the initial goal to benefit the Gifford community, but also to look at a path that maybe we could also increase it to West Wabasso and Oslo down the road. And this would just be the initial step looking into this. We'd obviously want to get a lot of input from the Gifford community, but I just think creating that recurring revenue stream to help fund the community plan and that ownership of knowing that it's your dollars going in to benefit your community and make it a better place for the residents and businesses, I think it really turns out to be a win-win for the Gifford community. So with that, I'd just like to make a motion that we direct staff to further explore the possibility of creating the community redevelopment area.
I'll second that for discussion. Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
To look into it, I've heard the county administrator's concerns about the CRAs, and financially respect his opinion on whenever it comes to that. And so, as the Gifford plan comes forward and as staff evaluates where we were, where we are versus where we had intended to be with the plan, whether it's a CRA or whether it's just dollars specifically for improvements in the community. It doesn't have to be a CRA necessarily for me to support something like that, but I believe we want to find that that we're not where the plan thinks that we should have been with the time frames and the goals that was laid out for prior commissions or from prior commissions. So I don't know that I'll support it when it ultimately gets here. Absolutely. But I support the concept enough that I'd like to see both of those kind of laid out and hear what staff has to recommend as far as being able to get those items accomplished in the neighborhood plan.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Commissioner Davis.
Mr. Solari.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm with Commissioner Davis I'm not sure whether I'll like it at the end, but I certainly think it's worth discussion, so I'll certainly support that motion. I'd like, if we could, to add the idea that, I don't know what the bureaucracy that would be set up to administer it is, but we do have the Enterprise Zone Committee, and I think that might be an appropriate place to filter some of this through. But I'm just like staff to take a look at that. I don't know that it's the most appropriate place, but it seems to me to be that it might be. But I don't like the idea of making the whole county a CRA, but especially given the efforts that have taken place in Gifford over the last years and the need to do some more, I certainly would be happy to discuss this, especially in terms of the Gifford neighborhood plan.
And I'm not particularly married to either plan either. It was just an option that what Martin County did. My thought, and again, initial just thoughts, was that the Board of County Commissioners would sit as the CRA board, and there would be an advisory group, either the Enterprise Zone or the community group from Gifford would be advisory to that, but the final ultimate responsibility would still rest with the Board of County Commissioners.
I like the idea of having the board as top, and then the more you say it, I'd like to probably have the Enterprise Zone Committee as that committee that reports to it. And if that helps get other people from Gifford onto the Enterprise Zone Committee, I think that's a plus. I think that it might help actually bolster the Enterprise Zone Committee.
Okay.
Commissioner Zorc.
Nothing. I think we need to take an overall look at the Gifford community of what its needs are, what will help itself over time, and that particular area of discussion, the 32nd Avenue, I shared with you an experience of someone we've helped in the foster care system that didn't live in that area, but when they moved into that particular area that's been of in concern and in the news a lot lately, there's something that happens to somebody when you just become a resident of that particular section. Coming from another area of Gifford, that we have to look at a lot of the dynamics of what all goes on there, from the Gifford plan or any other newer ideas, because I think that plan's probably at least 5 or 7 years old.
Oh, no, it's older than that. It's 5 or 7 years from having everything accomplished.
Right.
Okay.
I didn't even know it existed until it was brought to my attention.
Also, we haven't accomplished anything in any of the plans we set 7 years ago because we had to postpone it due to the economy, just about roads and services. So just about any plan you'll see coming in front of you today that was developed 7 to 10 years ago, we did not meet because of the economy. Obviously, the economy made us extend things out and postpone.
You know, actually, if I'm not mistaken, I was under the impression that it was even before that, if I'm, you know, looking back at it. But certainly, you know, a goal is a goal, and a plan, you know, I mean, so I won't be critical of that. And
Right.
I really won't be critical of it, because as a commissioner, I don't think any of us even knew of it. And so, you know, without the leadership of this board to champion those issues, you know, I think this is just a good opportunity. Again, good discussion we're having, and I think that we'll have good things come out of it.
As far as the process, do you want the neighborhood plan to come back before we bring the CRA back? I think because you want to look at that.
I believe that would be the most appropriate.
What we'll do is we'll work with them in conjunction. We actually might bring them at the same time also.
Yeah, and that's because I'm sure that the plan is going to have some, it's going to have some financial needs.
Yes.
And so, you know, the way to best accomplish that, and it very well may not. I mean, I like really where Commissioner Zork was going this, as far as having the Gifford community help the Gifford community. And I don't know that there's a dollar figure associated with that as much as other methods of getting that done.
Well, as we discussed earlier, I mean, there is a buy-in, and I appreciate the comments. Commissioner O'Brien, thank you for bringing this forward. It's good to look at, and it is an opportunity that is happening in other counties. I did look at CRAs as far as the municipalities, and there is also a collateral risk, as some years are not that financially lucrative and actually may draw a zero, which we will ultimately have to go towards or take a loan against the CRA, or just go to the general fund, as we had done for the over $14 million projects that have been operating since 2003. So, but most certainly I'm eager to look at this, have staff review it, and bring it back and see if it can work in conjunction with the advancement of the Gifford plan. In looking at the Gifford plan, I've seen that quite a bit of the targets have been hit as far as achievements and infrastructure with the Gifford plan, but there is work to be done. So perhaps maybe this will pick up the shortfall. Thank you.
And then, Mr. Chairman, just to make sure that the press is very clear on this, this is not to establish a CRA, but merely to ask staff to look into the possibility, and then it'll come back to us for further discussion.
Right.
And certainly, we want to get the Gifford community input. So this is nothing more than just telling staff to take a look at it for further information. I don't want to get a bunch of calls saying, what have you done? So just...
Thank you for that clarification. Commissioner O'Brien, on motion by Commissioner O'Brien, seconded by Vice Chairman Davis. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you, gentlemen.
The next item on the agenda is from Commissioner Zork, is a letter of support for proposal for the Florida Sea Grant, memorandum dated May 8, 2013. Commissioner Zork.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is one of the first ongoing benefits from the Lagoon Symposium. Basically what this is a collaboration that will involve Harbor Branch in doing some direct studies of the effect of septic tank issues as they relate to the waterway systems here in the county. This is a grant application that they're going after to pay for this study. We would be one of the beneficiaries of the data as it's collected, and Chris Mora in Public Works is going to kind of be somewhat the gatekeeper of incoming information, and where this might be have particular value is if once we start learning more about the different effects in the lagoon, some areas have a greater effect than others based on the way the groundwater movement is, and will help us potentially prioritize future projects to be identified to correct those groundwater contaminations moving into the lagoon area. So this is a letter of support that they asked for us to help them in their efforts to get the study funded.
And your motion?
Is to allow the letter to move forward.
Second.
Thank you, sir.
Motion by Commissioner Zork, seconded by myself. Any further discussion?
Yeah, just, Commissioner, I'm fully supportive of it. It may have a little bit more weight if we just authorize the chairman to sign it.
Sure.
And that way it would be coming from the entire board.
Okay.
And certainly if you wanted to add a letter from you personally,
Okay.
you don't need our permission to do that.
Okay.
But I think it'd have more weight coming from the chairman representing the entire board support, the letter of support. Just a,
That would be
a minor change there.
Whatever your pleasure is, gentlemen, and you've amended that motion, and I will amend the second.
And just, could you ask Brian to send us a copy of his proposal? I'd just be interested in seeing, or is he here, Brian here? But just to see exactly what the study's going to be.
Okay.
And then finally, Joe, have they installed the Kilroys yet?
No, they have not.
We're close.
My understanding is that they're trying to see where they think the best place is to install it, and they're looking at that right now. We've gotten the permit, so it's a matter of some professional opinions of where it should go right now. They were working with the Orca group, and they haven't
Okay, well,
decided.
can we ask them to expedite that before the
Yes.
rainy season really starts? Because, I mean,
It's actually already started. This
well,
is
I
a wet
know, but
spring.
if we're just,
You notice what happened this past
if we're
weekend.
just dinking around
Yeah.
saying, is it this piling or that piling, let's get the
Narrow it
things in the
down for
water.
them. Tell them start in the water.
Start in the water
There you
and
go,
let's
and
get
we'll go
it
from there.
done.
Near a pole
Actually-
that can be protected?
Commissioner Solari also brought this up to me yesterday, and I talked to Chris, and he's going to give us a time schedule, which will be mailed to all you when we think it's going to be installed, and he was checking with them yesterday.
Thank you. Mr. Johnson, you wanted to add to this?
Bob Johnson, Carl Wynn subdivision. How much is this going to pay? Is the government going to pay? I mean, Mr. Morrow's on the tax rolls. Is this going to be funded by the county under our, we're going to need to get more, going to have to raise the gas tax? Or how's this being funded? I mean, we haven't seen the total approval of the plan. This is just the first project. As some of these organizations requested money, it seems like the government's the first in line here to pay for the lagoon restoration, what have you. It seems like there ought to be additional other funding, and I'm not sure this has been looked at completely.
We're in the analysis stage right now. Right now, what we're doing is trying to analyze what the lagoon, where the pollution, what's the highest contributors to pollution, where the pollution, and look at it in a systematic way. We haven't made any decisions to spend money. As far as the Kilroy,
Well,
we paid.
Mr. Morrow works for the county, I think.
We're just
is his
applying.
salary part of the taxpayers?
Mr. Moore's salary is always there. It's what priorities we're given. We all know that Mr. Moore works long hours, and we've given that as one of his responsibilities. It doesn't change his salary. It stays the same whether this project goes forward or not. But we have put it under his control because of his background, and his salary would be there whether we did this project or not.
Is he gonna have to hire new staff, additional staff to work on this project?
Maybe down the road, but not at this time.
So that's my point.
Those are decisions based on the information we gather, and we're right now just in the process of gathering information.
But Bob, what is your point? I miss your point. What is your point?
My point is that through this introduction, this is the first introduction, first element that's being submitted for the lagoon to be improved.
Which is, the Kilroys or the study?
Tasking that Commissioner Zork has put forward to.
As for the cost of this, there is no cost to the county on us participating. We will just be a beneficiary of the information.
That's my point, that Commissioner Mr. Morrow is a government employee. He's paid for by our individual taxes.
Right.
So you're saying that shouldn't he, maybe he should have it funded through a contractor?
He's not
Or
doing
he's not
it.
funding. This is through Harbor Branch. We'll actually be securing the grant and doing the study. We're just going to receive a copy of the report when it's finished. And Mr. Mora is going to collect information from these and other programs over time to help.
I think my point is that, you know, we've been down this septic tank before, years ago, and
should have been addressed.
There was nothing that was conclusive that the septic tank was even a causing factor. There's no studies that have ever been brought forward.
Well, this will be
in writing that by EPA or any of these. Everybody just assumes that we're 6 feet from the lagoon, septic tank leaks, and it's causing all the problems.
Well, Mr. Johnson, this hopefully will clarify some of those assumptions and presumptions. This board has unilaterally supported an address to what's happening in our lagoon, and we're very blessed to have Harbor Branch Institute to be able to be so involved and immersed with the Kilroy program and other efforts and all of the scientists that have been brought forward through Commissioner Zorc's efforts to have a symposium. You know, there was oftentimes there was idle chatter about, well, it's this cause and that cause. And to have the symposium brought together magnificent minds who, yes, it may be of an opinion, but it's a professional opinion, and it's a benchmark that we need to establish, and the government needs to be responsible. Because after all, who else will be the bastion of our lagoon? Who else will defend our lagoon and get it back to where it needs to be for the enjoyment, recreation, and commerciability?
I have seen the symposium on the TV that was transmitted, watched the proceedings. I've seen all of the presentations which these water management districts have made. The St. John's Water Management District has a great deal of responsibility for our lagoon. So all I'm saying is that, you know, it looks like the county is taking it upon ourselves to be a funder, and that's what I'm trying to make sure that our role is a coordinating role. That Audubon Society, they ask their national headquarters for money to help pay for some of their lagoons, since maybe so that's all my point. Is it,
Mr. Johnson, there's a lot that's coming in, and we are treading lightly. We are not jumping to conclusions. We are not drawing county funds. Some of the suggestions were rather costly, and they are still being evaluated, and some of them are not as costly, but we have an obligation to preserve our lagoon and address the conditions. And I think we're doing so in good fashion, and we're being good stewards of the taxpayer dollar. And I don't believe that any large sum of the taxpayer dollars has gone in any direction at this point. Right now, we are collecting data. We're getting a lot of good information together and seeing which best efforts will reveal the best product in return, so that we can recover and have our lagoon recover.
I think it's great. I share everybody's concerns. I don't, but I do share the concerns that I'd like to see that the county be our partner in this and not be the sole, eventually down the line, be the sole funder of cleaning up the lagoon.
Well, I'm sure that there'll be many partners as different projects are identified. We will reach far and wide to get any funding sources we can as different projects are identified for the lagoon. But thank you for your comment.
And we'll do as many as the inexpensive ones as we can.
That's right.
Yes. On motion by Commissioner Zorc, seconded by myself. Any further discussion, gentlemen? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Gentlemen, meeting adjourned.